This is a golden ivy pothos on a pole filled with leca, no moss. And before you say that won't work, look at this. Most leca poles fail because the leca dries out. And when it's dry, the area roots don't grab on. The plant just climbs like the pole isn't even there. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact setup that makes a leca pole work. The whole goal is simple: to keep the leca in the pole consistently moist so the area roots want to grow in it. The way I'm doing this is by circulating nutrient solution from a reservoir at the base up to the top of the pole so it can trickle back down through the leca and stay evenly damp. I'll show you the build step by step, but first let me show you everything that I used. You'll find a couple of these parts matter more than you think, and choosing the wrong size can make the whole build rather annoying. I'm not the most handy person, and I am literally making this stuff up as I go along, but I have taken inspiration from a lot of people from Instagram. I think she's called Joyous Hoya 88. I've taken inspiration from Lee, and I've put a few things together that I'm hoping are going to make something that makes sense. I haven't pre-made this before, so I am literally making stuff up as I go along. So I'm going to show you the things that I need to make my leca pole. Obviously, we're going to need a plant. Now, I am using an Epipremnum golden ivy. This is an excellent plant for this because it sizes up really, really well. And if it works, it will look fantastic. So I've got a cutting here that has been growing for some time, and you can see already we started off with this and the new leaves are already coming in pretty small. So I'm pretty confident that this is going to look really, really good, and that's the root system there looking fabulous. Now to the actual gear. Now this is a guttering pipe. I got this from Bunnings, and don't worry about all this stuff. I will have it on screen, and I will have everything that I'm using in the description below, so you don't have to panic. So I'm not going to tell you what size this is or any of that stuff because I don't know what they are off the top of my head. But this is a guttering that I got from Bunnings, and it is complete rectangular thing. You can see there. You can see there, it is completely full. Now, I did not want to be on screen showing you how I cut this thing off. I literally cut off a piece of this. This here is a section that lived here that completed this, and it was a complete rectangle. But I cut this, and I spoke to the lovely man at Bunnings, and he advised me, because I didn't want to use any power tools, I just got a saw and I got a little sander and I got to work, and it didn't take me too long actually. I literally just, shoulder power, and I got that. Now, I don't want to be showing you all that on screen, so, trust that I did it. I actually did, because me and power tools, it's a relationship that I have never cultivated, and I do not even want to try because I'm never going to use power tools anyway. So I didn't want to go down that route. The other thing that I got is this little thing. Again, I'll tell you what it is. It's some sort of, capper or something that you put at the end. I thought I would get this and it will sit like, it's really hard to, like so. See, that sits in there like this, and it makes that pretty firm, right? And it'll have it sit really nicely at the bottom of my bucket. So whatever the heck that is, I got one of them too. Now, one of the most important things about this whole thing is this. This is the submersible pump. Now, again, details in the description, but from what I can read here, this is a PondMax HP 1100 V2022 water feature pump. So this is a submersible pump. It will sit inside my solution and it will bring up the nutrient solution all the way to the top. It's really important for you to make sure that the submersible pump that you're going to get is able to pump over a certain height. So if you get a pump that's not as strong, for example, it won't be able to pump that liquid all the way to the top. This is piping. This is my piping that I am going to attach to my submersible pump, and is going to bring the nutrient solution from my bucket all the way to the top of my pole. And then I got this little thing here. That's the water's going to spout. The nutrient solution will spout out of there. And this is just an adapter so that can sit nicely in my pipe. And then I've got some tighteners. That is a little tightener there. And I I spray painted this white because I want my whole thing to look white. I didn't do such a fantastic job. The same thing with this one. Normally this is black, obviously, but anyway, whatever. And then of course we are going to need cable ties. Cable ties, lots and lots of cable ties. One thing I forgot to tell you. So from this, when I cut off that piece, I also made holes in the sides because that is where my wire mesh is going to sit, like that, and I'm going to attach my wire mesh to that. So my plant is obviously going to, this is the front, my plant is going to sit in front of that wire mesh, and it's all going to go like this. Well, at least that's the way I see it in my head. I don't know how this is going to work out, but yeah, there we go. And of course, we're going to need something for my plants to actually sit in. So I've got this net pot over here. I think this is a Nutrifield. Yes, it's a Nutrifield brand. It's a net pot. Of course, it comes black. I spray painted it. You know, it'll do. What can I do? Now, this one actually comes completely sealed. It's completely round, and it sits on top of a bucket like that. So what I have also done is made this hole here so that that can sit in there nicely. It is all, I don't know, just forgive my madness. There's just a lot of method to this madness, and I hope as I bring everything together, it's actually going to make sense. And of course, this is a bucket. This is a 15-litre bucket. This is a bucket that I got from Total Tools if you're in Australia. I like this bucket because it's clear. It was really important for me to get a clear bucket because I needed to see the level of the nutrient there on that side. I mean, there's so many dark buckets around, but this is the only one I could find in Total Tools, which is clear. And then of course I spray painted it as well. And so before I spray painted, I put some tape, some masking tape over there just to keep this clear so I can see the level of that nutrient solution. And that's really, really important because what we don't want is for my nutrient solution to go so low that my submersible pump is no longer sitting in water. So this was something that was really so important for me. It was going to be a complete deal breaker if I couldn't find a clear bucket, because otherwise I had no way of knowing whether there was still nutrient solution in that. I do have another thing. The last thing that was really important is to get a smart plug. So this plug is going to allow me to intermittently run the system. So I don't want that pump to be running 24/7. It doesn't need to run 24/7. It just needs to run enough times that leca stays moist. And that's not all the time. So hopefully this is going to allow me to do that. I think we are ready to start constructing. I'm going to put all this away and we'll start working on the pole. So in the interest of making everything look white, I have a white clear cable ties that I got that I'm going to use to attach my mesh. This is normally green. I spray painted that as well. And I have some larger cable ties that I'm going to use to attach my pipe that brings my nutrient solution to the back. So again, I actually did make holes at the back of this to facilitate that. Right, so this is going to be my top, and I want my top to look good. So I will start from the top and just put my cable ties through right at the start so it's looking really, really amazing. That is the first one in. Now what I've realized as I was doing this is they're quite tight. The holes are quite tight. I could have done with them being a little bit bigger, but what do? Now, the other thing I'm realizing is it's probably best to get, oh, hang on, what am I doing? There we go. I use my soldering iron to make these holes because it's actually almost impossible to do it without it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put those cable ties all across this mesh. Before I go too far ahead with putting off the mesh, the one thing that's really important that I must do is put the cable ties that are going to hold my pipe secure at the back. So I've got some holes that I made here. They're not very big, so I'm actually a bit concerned that my cable tie is a bit big, but hey, it's just going to, oh, it's quite tight. It's quite tight. This one will be too small. I might have to redo the holes and make them bigger. Okay, I have made the holes a little bit bigger, and now my cable tie goes in quite nicely. Is that? Yes, like that. And then comes out like that, and that's where my pipe is going to go. That's exactly where it's going to go. So it's pretty much really important to put these cable ties in before I close up the whole thing at the front, because it's going to be impossible to do it after the fact, and I basically have to start all over again. It's also important to make sure that I've got the cable ties the right way around, because if I've got them the wrong way around, they won't tie. Okay, I'm happy with that, and now I'm going to finish with putting my mesh at the front. So I've got the bulk of the cable ties in place right now, and the structure of that pole is looking really good. My hands are a bit slippy. Look at that. Look at that. And that's what it looks like at the back. Looking really awesome indeed. Now, before I cut off the redundant bits of the cable ties, I want to make sure they are really secure and flattened on either side so that I don't have the sharp edges affecting my leaves. Okay, just cut off those bits. I know this side, it's pretty long, so I can't show you the whole thing standing up. I know that this side is going to be the top, and this side here is going to be the bottom. Now, we need to, oh my gosh, this is so fiddly to do. There, this is the bottom, right? And this is where it's going to sit at the base. Now, this is going to sit in there like that. Now, when I fill this up with Leca, the Leca is actually going to fall out. So I have a wire mesh that I prepared earlier. Now I'm going to try and see, I'm going to fold this across so that I've got those overlapping, so that hopefully by doing that, my Leca won't fall out as easily. I can actually overlap this a little bit more, and it goes like this, and that will be my base. I could have also put it on the inside, right? But, you know, that will have to do. Right, okay, so I'll grab my cable ties again and push them through there, and that is going to keep that in place. Got another one there. I've got this glove on because my hands are very slippy and I just can't get any purchase without the glove on. There we go. This is looking good. Oops. Oh, it's probably easier to do it from the top down. Actually, no. This is one of the more fiddly things I've done in a long time. I'm just being really dim right now. I don't know whether it's because it's so hot in Melbourne or what, but you know, I could have just taken this off and just done it like this. Like, really, Nora? Really? Just really? Okay? Could you be any more? It's so hot. I'm just not thinking very straight. Not thinking very straight at all. You know what I'm saying? And then I'll probably get another, 2 cable ties to make sure that this thing is actually secured to that. I think that might work. I don't know, it might. So getting it like that and then getting it in like that. So that kind of attaches that to that. Do the same thing to the other side. And then I just put that in and then pull. So that kind of holds that in place in some way. Yeah. Okay, loving that. Okay, so now I have this sorted. I'm actually not sure which direction to go at this stage. I still need to attach the piping at the back, and okay, I might just put that on very loosely. I'm not going to tighten it because I'm not exactly sure. Oh, that is That is really, really tight. I can't move that at all. I really needed smaller cable ties for this. There. There we go. And then this one here comes over there. This is what's going to attach to the submersible pump. I'm not sure exactly how much of that is going to go in the bucket, so see. This is kind of what we're going for, okay? And this is what's going to be at the top. Okay, I'm liking that. I think we're now at the point where I might need to put Leca in this. And you know what might have been easier? Probably is, what I'm probably gonna do is open this up here so I can fill that bottom. It's gonna be a lot of work to fill it up from the top over there. See, again, you know, this is stuff I am literally just making up as I go along because I just have no idea how the best way of doing this. No idea. Right, so if I open that up like that, then I can put the Leca in. So I've got a lot of Leca that I prepared. And I know by the time I'm done making this video, I'm gonna have Leca everywhere in my house, but that is my Leca. So the idea is, maybe I should use my dominant hand. That is the idea. Ooh, and I just sort of squish everything to the bottom. You can see what is starting to happen there. Oh. I like that. I'm not having Leca coming out from the bottom. So I think that overlapping of the mesh, brilliant idea. Really like that. And I'm getting some of the tinier Leca falling out from the front. I expect that to happen. But I think this is going really well now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill this up. Okay, now that I've got the bulk of this, I will close this up and then fill from the top. Okay, that is looking good. So this bit here is done. There, that is what my thing now looks like. Now I'm gonna get rid of this table so you can see what the whole thing looks like. Okay, and here we are. Gotten rid of the table, and this is what my pole looks like. So that's what it's going to look like when I put it in my pot. And I was able to fill it up all the way up to here. Now I need to, oh shucks, this is one of the more fiddly projects I have ever undertaken. I probably needed an assistant to help me with this, but I don't have one, so I'm gonna have to do the best that I can. That is what my pole looks like. Oh my gosh. This is so precarious. It is so precarious. This is my bucket. I'm gonna have my bucket here. And let's just try it out for size. That is going to sit in there. Like that. I don't know how this is gonna work, guys. I really don't know. As you can see, some of that Leca is falling out. It's just the really small bits, and I expect that to happen, obviously. Maybe what I could have done is overlapped the mesh with this as well. I don't know. That could have been a thing to do. But anyway, I'll put this down. Shucks. That is really difficult. I'll grab my water pump. So my water pump has got these little feet that help it stick to the bottom. Right, and I'm going to place my water pump in there, and it's going to sit there. Just putting a little bit of liquid there, so maybe it will hold. It will not hold. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do next, but all I know is this is the little bit where the cable for my water pump is going to go. And this is where my pole is going to live. So I now need to, by some miracle, put my pole in there and then attach my pipe to this. And that's what's going to, so the water comes in through there and then it goes up through there. This is really doing my head in. Really, I am not enjoying this at all, but I will be so pumped when it's done. But right now, I am not a happy bunny. Right, so now I know this needs to go here, but I need to pull my pipe up a bit. This is where it's going to be tricky. It's going to be really impossible for me to show you how I'm attaching that pipe. I'm literally just... Let's think this through, Nora. There we go. Right, I now have my pipe in there, and I now... Whoa! I seem to have a problem. My pipe is kinking, so I need to cut my cable tie that was at the bottom. So what's happened is the big cable tie that I had attaching my pipe to this that was right at the bottom was causing it to kink. So clearly that is something that didn't need to be there. So anywho, I fixed that. And let me see if this is now going to sit. Oh my, oh my. I don't think that's going to sit. I might need to actually get a cable tie and attach this to the basket because I just don't have enough space back there. I think it's all this Leca that's fallen in the bucket. I'm thinking what it could also be is, you know, that little plug thing I put at the bottom of the thing? It is now taking up too much space at the back of the bucket. So my pole can't sit flush to the bucket. I think that's what the issue is. I don't know. I did not take into account the pipe. That is what is giving me a problem right now. This, I just assumed it would just lie flush at the back, which was a wrong assumption on my part. So now this isn't sitting flush. Ah, goodness me. Okay. Right, I think part of my problem is this. This is taking up too much space in the bucket, one, but then there's also the pipe situation. So the first thing I can fix is to remove that and hopefully not have too much of that Leca falling out. Oh my, I told you I'm making this up as I go along. So I need that to go there. It's easy on this front side. Not sure what I'm going to do on the back, but hey, one problem at a time. This is an interesting challenge. So what I have done now is made some holes using my soldering iron here at the back that I'm going to put a cable tie through to hold. Maybe the other way is better, Nora. It's really difficult to put these cable ties through after the fact. It really, really is. There, that is what I needed. And that holds that securely. Now to see if I can push it through this other one. Yay. Okay, I'm very happy with that. That'll keep the bulk of that Leca in and get rid of my bulk problem at the bottom. Now what I've done with this as well is I've just gone ahead and cut a little bit more space there to allow for that pipe at the back because, you know, this project is really starting to get to me. I tell you, this is one of the hardest things I've ever done. I put my pump in. And then now I gotta put this in somehow. That is now in. Now the trick is to see if this will sit with my weird. Let me get that onto the other side. There, I think that's the best I can do. That is truly the best I can do. And ooh, let me see. I'm wondering if I probably need to cut that a little bit more. Damn it! Now I have to put this down again. Oh, whew. Okay. Cut that a little bit more. And I really see a situation where I actually have to attach this thing to the bucket because I think there's no way it's going to be stable on its own. Hang on. More. Oh my goodness. By the time I'm done with this, I will be so exhausted and annoyed. Whoever said you could do this anyway? I don't know why I thought I could do this. I am not good at this kind of thing. Let's try this again. Okay, the only problem is I still need to keep a hold on to that. But this is it. It's actually working. I've got it exactly the way I wanted it. Now I just need to secure this to the bucket because I think I just have to secure it to the bucket. I don't know why I thought I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't need to secure it to the bucket. I can lean that against there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, people. You don't know. You don't know the trouble I've seen. Oh, shucks. How am I going to secure this to the bucket? More holes. Yes. At this point, I think it's time to pot my plant up. I'm just going to put this wick through just to make sure that at any given time, my plant is actually receiving nutrition from the bottom. And that wick just goes straight through. Okay, so my hole is actually done here. And I've got my cable, my pipe coming through the top there. This is where I'm going to attach my adapter and my this. I can just screw that in. This one is really just to, you know, it's acting as a director, just to sort of bring the water into the pole like that. So I need to cut that. I'm a bit scared of cutting it, to be honest, because if I mess this up, there's no coming back from this. So I'll just start like really high up, like so. And if I get that and push it in like that, that's a bit high. I think I need to cut it a bit more. Maybe I need to cut it a bit more. That's good. I probably could have done with cutting it a bit more, but you know what? I don't want to tempt fate. I really don't want to tempt fate. I want something to hold that a bit, to hold it a bit like this. Maybe I'll just grab some tape. At this point, this is not necessarily the ideal situation, right? But I'm just doing this like this just so I can finish because I'm just sick and tired of doing this now. But so, you know, you can have a rough idea of what it's eventually going to look like while I figure out what exactly I'm going to do. But yeah, let's turn it on. Oh, it's working! The only problem is I'm getting some water coming through here. There's some water coming through the back here, but that's also because I haven't completely filled this thing with Leca. I think if I put Leca there, look at that! Woohoo! This is exactly what I was going for. This is very clumsy, but this is exactly what I was going for. Oh my gosh. Now, yes, I do have, I mean, it's actually, I'm not holding on to that. It stands on its own, but it's, yeah. If I could get it to, so it's leaning a bit to the back, but if I could get it to be a bit, you know, more forward, it could lean. It could, yeah, stand on its own, no problem. I wouldn't have to worry about it. But oh my gosh, look at that. Right, okay, I'm going to turn this off, finish filling off the Leca, and of course, we still haven't put our plant in there. Now that we have our pole sorted, let's put our plant in. So I've already got my wick in there. I'll just do that. And I'll get my plant, put that there, and voila, that is good. I'm going to take this leaf off because it's right at the bottom and it's just, you know, just going to be sitting inside the leca. Yeah, that is better. Put it in there like that. Okay, that is done. I'll just get my little clips, clip that to my mesh. Hang on. Trying to attach my plant properly. My goodness me. I am really tired of doing this now. Right, this is my leca pole. There have been a few issues, but the theory is sound. I've now attached cable ties to the nursery pot, attaching it to my pot over here. Thinking out loud now, knowing what I know now, I'll probably use reusable cable ties for this. So when I need to empty it for whatever reason, I can always put them back. But now these are like one-time use only. That's not very useful. I know now. So next time I will go and get some reusable ones and do that. But all in all, I think this is worked really, really well. Exactly the way I thought it would. Well, not exactly. But design-wise, I think it's really going to work. And so I've got that place at the side there so I can see the level of the nutrient solution in there. So I always just need to make sure that it's pretty high. And because this is a pothos plant, it's not really going to be a problem. I'm leaving a little bit of a gap so there's at least some air. I'm not filling it all the way up to the top. I'll show you how all that works a little bit later. But today, you know, I think it's just enough to have gotten through this build, and I'm going to turn that back on again. And also, it is actually stable-ish. It's not leaning on anything. I'm not holding it, so I'm really happy with that. I'll turn it on. It's on. I can hear it. And now that I've got leca all the way up to the top, I don't have that spill that I had coming from the back. I'm really happy with this. Really happy with this. Thank you to all the people who inspired this build, because you can best believe I did not come up with this. I just looked at what other people had done, thought to see how they did it, and try to see if I could replicate it. So for those of you out there who are thinking of having a leca pole, you're tired of fungus gnats in your moss poles, it's really hard to keep them moist. It's impossible to keep leca moist enough, but here we are. And so the thing now is to see what's going to happen with my plant and how it gets big, if it does get big. And, you know, once it gets to the top, exactly how do you deal with a plant that's growing in this kind of setup? Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.